Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we are going to discuss one of the most important cell signaling pathway is the JAK STAT pathway. Now this type of pathway you will study both in cell signaling as well as in immunology, because this is one of the most important pathways for cytokine signaling. So one type of cytokine signaling happens by this type of pathway, which is the JAK STAT pathway. Now if you see on the right hand side, this is the figure of the detailed signaling pathway of JAK STAT. So in absence of the cytokine, what happens? These are the two receptors, alpha and beta. So these are called as the cytokine receptors. So these are cytokine receptors designated as CR. I am writing it as CR. So these receptors remain loosely associated with each other in absence of cytokine, and their cytoplasmic tails. Okay, so this portion is associated with an inactive tyrosine kinase called as the janus activated kinase or JAKs. So the cytokine tails of each of the receptors is associated with an inactive tyrosine kinase called as the janus activated kinase or JAK. Okay, so this is the situation in absence of cytokine. Now what happens in presence of cytokine? So when cytokine comes and binds to this receptor, so here on the right hand side, as you can see, one cytokine molecule has come and it has bind to the receptor. So what happens? The dimerization of the receptor takes place, and this leads to the activation of the receptor associated JAKs. So these JAKs, these inactive tyrosine kinases, now becomes activated on when cytokine comes and binds to the receptor. Okay, so what happens next? This receptor associated JAKs phosphorylate specific tyrosines in the receptor subunits. So these are basically tyrosine kinases. Okay, so these JAKs are basically tyrosine kinases. Tyrosine kinases means these activate the tyrosine molecules. So what happens? These JAKs in turn activate the phosphate groups present in the receptor subunit. So these in turn activate these phosphate groups present in the receptor subunits, with which go and bind and activate to a second molecule. Okay, so which are known as STAT. So what is the next step? These phosphorylated tyrosine residues serve as docking sites for inactive transcription factors known as signal transducers and activators of transcription STATs, which then becomes activated. So the phosphate molecules activated by JAKs. So these are the phosphate molecules which have been activated by JAKs. So these phosphate molecules go and activate another transcription factor called as the STAT. Okay, so this is the STAT transcription factor that has been shown here, and exactly which specific domain is activated, that is the SH2 domain of STAT is activated by the phosphate groups. Okay, so what happens when STAT becomes activated? It dimerizes and it translocates into the nucleus to initiate the transcription of the DNA. Okay, so here what happens? It translocates from the cytoplasm to the nucleus. So this is the nucleus, and it dimerizes and translocates from the cytoplasm into the nucleus to initiate transcription of the DNA. So these are the steps of JAK STAT pathway. So I am repeating it once again. In absence of cytokine, what happens? The receptor molecules remain loosely associated with each other, as well as on the cytoplasmic tail they contain the inactive tyrosine kinase called as the janus activated kinase. And when cytokine comes and binds to the receptor, it leads to the dimerization of the receptor, and it also leads to the activation of the JAKs. And this receptor associated JAKs further activate phosphate subunits in the receptor, and these phosphate subunits go and activate the another transcription factor called as the STAT. Now this transcription factor STAT dimerizes and translocates from the cytoplasm into the nucleus, where it initiates the transcription of the DNA. Okay, so here basically what is happening, when cytokine is binding to a receptor, a tyrosine kinase is getting activated, which further activates a downstream transcription factor to initiate transcription of the DNA. Now this is very important in immunology, because one of the important cytokine pathways is activated. Okay, we will see further pathways in our subsequent videos.